There's things that happen out there that just don't add up. I've seen men freeze in battle and mothers lift cars off their kids. But that day, back in '93, that little girl on the rooftop, something happened that I still can't explain. I thought I was the one saving her. Turns out, maybe someone else beat me to it. Name's Richard Sullivan. Folks around here call me Dick. I'm 65 now, retired, living just outside Hannibal, Missouri. I got a little house with a porch that looks out over the river. That river's been a part of my life longer than I can remember. I served in the Army, 20 years. Infantry. Spent most of my time overseas, a couple tours in the Gulf. Retired as a staff sergeant. Didn't do anything special, just showed up and did the work. That's what you're taught to do. Show up, don't quit. When I got out, I tried to settle in. That's not as easy as it sounds. Coming home, it's strange. Everything looks the same, but you don't feel the same. You hear kids laughing, birds singing, folks mowing their lawns. But inside, it's still loud. Too loud sometimes. You carry that noise with you. So I kept busy, worked odd jobs, helped at the local VFW, drove a school bus for a while. I didn't really talk much about what I'd seen. My wife used to say I had a quiet kind of weight to me. I think that was her way of saying I was still carrying things I hadn't put down yet. In the summer of '93, things got real bad round here. Rains came hard and didn't stop. The Mississippi just kept rising, swallowing up everything in its path. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, we're used to flooding around here. It's part of life on the river, but that year was something else. They called it the Great Flood. Whole towns underwater, farms gone, people stranded on rooftops, animals floating by in the current. It was chaos. National Guard got involved. Volunteers came from all over. You'd turn on the news and it was like watching the end of the world. I wasn't in uniform anymore. Hadn't been for a while, but something in me, I don't know, it stirred. Like I couldn't just sit there watching TV while folks were out there needing help. I may not have been active duty, but I still had 2 good arms and a damn decent sense of direction. That counted for something. So I started showing up. I wasn't part of any official rescue team or nothing like that. I just showed up. Brought my old pickup, a couple coolers with water, a pair of boots that could take a beating. One of the fellas at church loaned me a John boat. I knew how to handle a boat. Grew up fishing with my dad on the river. Some skills don't fade. It wasn't glamorous work. Mostly just checking on folks, helping them grab what they could before the water took it. Moving sandbags, pulling calves out of barns. Stuff like that. But every now and then, you'd hear something come across the radio, something different, something bad. I remember one morning, I was eating a gas station sandwich, still half frozen in the middle, when this call came in. They said a little girl had been spotted out near the edge of a flooded cornfield, maybe 5 miles outside Quincy, Illinois. Nobody knew how she got there. No adults around. Just her. Sitting on what was left of a roof. I stood there holding that sandwich and I just froze. I couldn't shake the image. A kid, alone, surrounded by water. No dry land for miles. That ain't right. That's not something you ignore. The cops were stretched thin. Rescue crews were already tied up. So I told the guy at the station, I'll go, just give me the coordinates. He looked at me like I was nuts. You sure, Dick? That's a long haul in this mess. But I was already loading up the boat. Thing is, I didn't even hesitate. I don't know why. I've thought about that day 100 times since, trying to figure out why I moved so fast. Maybe it was the Army still in me. Maybe it was something else. I don't pretend to have all the answers. What I do know is this. When I pushed that boat out onto the water, heading toward that flooded field, something felt different. Like I wasn't just doing a good deed. Like I was supposed to be there. And maybe I was. But I'll get to that part. That summer felt off right from the start. Usually by June, folks around here are out mowing lawns, kids running barefoot through sprinklers, and the river's just minding its business. But in '93, the rain just kept coming. Days on end, the ground turned to mush. You couldn't park your truck on the grass without it sinking. At first, we all just figured it was a bad season. Happens now and then. But then the water started climbing, and it didn't stop. Towns north of us, Keokuk, Burlington, even up in Iowa, they were already fighting to keep the levees from breaking. You'd hear it on the radio every morning. Record levels, evacuation orders, bridges closed. Felt like we were watching it all inch closer. People around here are tough. We've got farmers who don't blink at 16-hour days, women who'll fix a fence and bake a pie in the same afternoon. But I'll tell you, when that river wants to take something, it don't ask for permission. My days got real busy, real fast. I wasn't part of any agency or rescue squad, just one guy with a truck and a borrowed boat. But I had friends calling me up left and right. Dick, you got rope? Dick, can you help get the generator out the basement? Dick, we can't find the dog. And I'd go. Every time. Because that's what you do. It wasn't heroic. Hell, half the time I was just passing buckets of water down a line or pushing stuck vehicles out of the mud. You'd come home soaked, smelling like diesel and river rot. Your hands would be cracked from the sandbags, your back screaming. But nobody complained. Not really. We just kept moving. I remember this one day, early July, helping an old couple move what was left of their furniture up to the attic. Water was already licking the floorboards downstairs. They had this wedding photo, black and white, frame all worn down. Been married 50-some years. The woman handed it to me like it was gold. And I got it. I really did. When everything's floating away, it's those little things that start to matter most. There were moments, though, when it got real quiet. I don't mean peaceful. I mean that thick kind of silence where even the birds stopped chirping. You'd be out there in the boat, paddling past rooftops, and all you'd hear was the drip of water and maybe the wind knocking a shutter loose. Gave me the chills, even in the heat. We all kept radios on us, CBs, scanners, whatever we could get our hands on. Folks were passing info back and forth like lifelines. There's a propane tank floating near Route 24. Levee breach near Ursa. Missing dog, answers to Charlie. Most of it was chatter, but every now and then, you'd hear something that stopped you cold. That's what happened the day I heard about the girl. But I'll get there. Before that, most of my days looked the same. Wake up before sunrise, lace up my boots, check the weather, and head toward wherever I was needed. Sometimes that meant driving out to a friend's farm to help load hogs into a trailer before the barn flooded. Other times I'd be knocking on doors telling folks it was time to get out. Some listened, some didn't. That's a hard thing, you know. Telling someone to leave their home, their land. Most of them had been there their whole lives. My granddaddy built this place with his own hands, they'd say. And I'd nod, respectful. But inside I was thinking, this water don't care who built it. It's coming either way. I tried to stay calm, focused, kept my head down, kept moving. That's what I learned in the Army. You don't panic, you don't overthink, you get the job done and move on to the next. But some nights, I'd come home, peel off my wet clothes, sit on the edge of the bed and just stare. My wife, God bless her, she didn't ask questions, just handed me a cold beer and sat beside me. That kind of quiet. It speaks louder than words sometimes. And the smell. I don't think I'll ever forget that smell. Wet earth, gasoline, mold, livestock, dead fish, all mixed into this thick, sour air. Got into your clothes, into your skin, into your lungs. Some nights I'd lie there and swear I could still smell it even after a shower. But there was also a strange kind of beauty in how people came together. Strangers handing each other food, teenagers filling sandbags without being asked, churches turning into shelters. Nobody cared about politics, money, or who believed in what. All that mattered was staying afloat, literally. It reminded me of something we used to say in the service. We all bleed the same in the mud. And that summer, we were all in the mud together. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. July 21st, 1993. Sky was gray, real heavy. You could feel it in your bones like the whole day was holding its breath. I'd barely slept the night before. The rain had come down hard, and I spent most of the night helping a neighbor move his tractor up to higher ground. Mud everywhere. My boots were still soaked when I slipped them back on. I was grabbing coffee from this gas station near Taylor when the radio on the counter crackled. The guy behind the counter, Billy, I knew him since he was a teen. He looked up, turned the volume up just a notch. Something about a sighting. A child, they said. Female. Alone on a rooftop somewhere out past County Road 513, near the edge of an old cornfield that had turned into one big lake. They didn't have much detail. No names, no known family nearby. Just a girl. Looked to be around 6 or 7. No adults in sight. I just stood there holding that styrofoam cup. My stomach dropped. I didn't think. Didn't talk. Just nodded at Billy, tossed a 5 on the counter, and walked out. Drove straight to the shed where I'd been keeping that borrowed John boat, loaded it up, tossed in my life vest, couple ropes, flashlight, canteen. Grabbed an old army poncho even though I knew I'd be drenched before long. Rain was still coming down, not hard, but steady. That kind of cold, persistent drizzle that soaks you from the inside out. I radioed the local fire station to confirm the location. They didn't have a team available right then. Too many calls, too little manpower. So I said I'd head out. They knew me, trusted me. One of them just said, "Be careful, Dick." Always hated that phrase. Be careful. As if you had a choice. Took me about 45 minutes to get out there. Roads were flooded, trees down, power lines hanging low. Had to park the truck and walk the last half mile, dragging the boat behind me like a damn mule. By the time I reached the water's edge, I could see what they were talking about. That cornfield, used to belong to the Brenners, was just gone. Nothing but still, muddy water and the tops of corn stalks poking out like broken bones. And there she was. Tiny shape on a dark rooftop. Could barely make it out at first. Looked like a doll sitting there. But it wasn't. It was her. Just sitting. Not waving. Not crying. Just still. I felt this tightness in my chest. Not fear, not exactly. More like urgency, like something was pushing me forward. Got in the boat, started paddling. The water was calm but deep. Couldn't see a damn thing beneath the surface. Had to be careful not to hit any submerged debris. Barnwood, fencing, who knows what else was floating around. Took me a good 15 minutes to reach her. Closer I got, the more I could see. She was wearing a little pink coat, soaked through, and some kind of slippers. Hair plastered to her face, just watching me. I kept my voice steady. "Hey there, sweetheart. My name's Dick. I'm here to help you, all right?" She didn't move. Didn't speak. I eased the boat up against the roof and climbed out real slow. That thing could have collapsed under my weight, but it held. Thank God it held. I knelt beside her. She was shivering, but not the way most kids do. It was like her body had just shut down. Still warm, but barely. I took my poncho and wrapped it around her, careful not to startle her. She didn't resist. Just looked at me with these big, glassy eyes. No tears, no panic, just quiet. I asked her name. She didn't answer. I picked her up, cradled her close. She was light. Too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Getting back into that boat was tricky. One bad step and we'd both be in the drink, but I managed. Sat her on my lap, held onto her tight, and started paddling back. All the while I kept talking to her. Nothing fancy, just simple stuff. "You're doing great. You're safe now. We'll get you warm soon." She didn't say a word, but she kept her eyes on me, like she was studying me, or waiting for something. Got back to dry land. Radioed for help. EMTs were on the way. Wrapped her up best I could and sat on the tailgate of my truck holding her close. She leaned her head against my chest. I remember feeling her heartbeat. Steady. Faint, but there. And I remember thinking, where the hell did she come from? There were no houses near there that hadn't been cleared. No reports of missing kids in that area. The place had been swept twice already by volunteers and drones. And yet, there she was. No footprints, no signs of someone else. Just that rooftop, that little girl, and me. But that wasn't the part that stuck with me most. Not yet. That came later. I've seen some rough things in my life. Overseas in the service, you learn to keep your nerves steady. You see folks scared, hurt, bleeding, begging. You learn to shut a part of yourself off so you can do what needs doing. But nothing, and I mean nothing, hit me quite like seeing that little girl up close for the first time. She was just sitting there, on a rooftop barely above water, soaked to the bone, not crying, not calling out, just quiet. That kind of quiet gets to you. Makes your gut twist. I remember the wind picking up as I got closer, blowing spray right in my face. Made it hard to see. I was squinting, fighting the current, trying to keep the boat from bumping the roof too hard. One wrong move, and that thing could have shifted, sent her sliding in. When I finally got close enough, I called out again. "Hey there, sweetheart. You all right?" No answer. She was looking at me, sure, but her eyes didn't move like you'd expect. Didn't dart around like a scared kid. They were fixed, on me. Not past me, not off to the side, on me. Like she was waiting on me, like she knew I was coming. That sent a shiver through me, and not from the cold. I stepped onto that rooftop careful-like. Roof tiles were slick, half submerged. One wrong step and we'd both be taking a swim. I crouched down slow, real slow, like I used to do when checking wounded soldiers. Didn't want to spook her. Up close, I could see her better. Mud on her face. Pink coat, 2 sizes too small, zipped up all the way to her chin. Her slippers, those little soft, kind kids wear in the house, were hanging off her feet. One was gone altogether. She looked about 7, maybe 6, hard to tell, pale, thin, and cold, real cold. I pulled off my poncho and wrapped her in it. Her arms were limp at first, like she wasn't even there. Then, real slow, she reached out and grabbed hold of the fabric. Not me, just the poncho. Like she needed something to hold on to, but didn't trust people just yet. Didn't blame her. I asked her if she was hurt. Asked her name again, still nothing. Just those big eyes locked on mine. I remember thinking, where the hell is her family? How did she end up here alone? No answers. Time was running. The water was still rising. That roof wasn't going to hold much longer. I said real gentle, "All right, sweetie. I'm going to pick you up now, okay? We're going to get you someplace warm." Still no words. No nod. But she didn't pull away. I scooped her up slow and held her against my chest. She was so small, light as a sack of feathers. I could feel her heart beating, fast, like a little bird. She rested her head on my shoulder and just went limp. Not like she passed out. More like she was letting go. Like she'd been holding herself up for too long and now she didn't have to. I got her into the boat, laid her down gentle on a blanket I'd tossed in earlier. I sat beside her, one arm around her the whole way back. That paddleback felt longer. I kept looking over my shoulder, watching the rooftop fade into the gray behind us. That place gave me a chill I still can't explain. Halfway back, I saw a dead cow float past us, bloated, belly up. Her eyes flicked toward it for a second, then closed. I started talking again, real soft. Didn't matter what I said. Just wanted her to hear a voice that wasn't the wind or the water. "You're safe now. I got you. You're doing just fine." When we reached dry ground, I carried her straight to the truck. She still hadn't said a word. Just clinging to that poncho, eyes half open. I radioed it in. EMTs were maybe 10, 15 minutes out. Sat there on the tailgate, holding her close, trying to keep her warm. My shirt was soaked. My arms were shaking. Not from cold. Just all of it hitting me. I didn't feel heroic. Didn't feel proud. I felt confused. Off balance. Like something didn't add up. And that look in her eyes. It stayed with me. Not scared. Not thankful. Just calm. Too calm. I'd seen shock before. I know what it looks like. This wasn't that. It was like she knew she'd be found. Like this was all part of some plan I didn't understand. The medics arrived. They checked her over, wrapped her in a thermal blanket, and loaded her into the back of the ambulance. I gave my report. Short, straight. They asked me where I found her. I pointed to the field. They looked at each other, said that area had been searched. Twice. I didn't say much, just nodded. What was I supposed to say? That a child appeared in the middle of a flooded field with no sign of how she got there. I watched the ambulance drive off, stood there with my hands on my hips, soaked through, breathing hard, mud up to my knees, whole body aching. But it wasn't the pain that got to me. It was the feeling I'd missed something, like the story wasn't over yet. And Lord knows it wasn't. I kept thinking about her eyes. You ever see eyes that just don't match the face? She was just a kid, 7 tops. But when she looked at me, it wasn't the way kids look. It was deeper, like she'd seen something I hadn't, like she knew something I didn't. That look stayed with me the rest of the day, and the next. I went home that night, sat on my porch with a towel around my shoulders, just staring at the river. My wife came out, handed me a bowl of soup. I didn't eat it, didn't even pick up the spoon. I just kept seeing her, that rooftop, that stare, that silence. Next morning, I checked in with the folks from the firehouse, asked if they'd heard anything. They said she was stable, no injuries, still hadn't said a word, not one. Authorities were already trying to figure out who she was. No ID, no reports of a missing kid matching her description, no car found nearby, nothing. It didn't make sense. Look, I've seen chaos before. I've seen what disasters do to families, to neighborhoods, to systems. People fall through the cracks all the time. But this? A kid, alone, right in the middle of a zone we'd already gone over twice? It gnawed at me. I started checking in more. Drove over to the hospital in Quincy a couple days later. Asked if I could visit. The nurse looked at me sideways at first, but then she nodded. You the one who found her? I nodded back. They took me down the hall. She was in a small room, curtains half drawn, IV in her arm. Still wearing the same expression. That stillness. She looked up when I walked in. And I swear to you, it was like she recognized me, not just remembered me. Recognized me. Like she'd been waiting. I sat beside the bed, not saying much. Just watched her for a while. Then I said, "You gave me a scare out there, sweetheart." She blinked slow. No words. "Doctors taking good care of you?" Still nothing. I reached into my coat and pulled out a little army coin I used to carry in my pocket. Just a token. Something I'd kept since my first tour. Handed it to her, real gentle. "Here," I said. "Kept me safe all these years. Maybe it'll do the same for you." She took it, held it in both hands like it was glass. Still no words, but I swear, there was something in the way she looked at me then, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't, or wouldn't. I asked if there was anyone I could call, family, a friend. She just stared down at the coin. Eventually, the nurse came in, said it was time to let her rest. I stood up, gave her a little nod. Right as I reached the door, I heard a sound behind me. Soft, like a breath trying to be a word. I turned, but she'd already closed her eyes. Didn't say nothing else that day. I went home feeling off, like the room had shifted under my feet. Couple more days passed. Floodwaters started to go down. Things started to dry out. Folks were getting back to rebuilding, salvaging what they could, but I couldn't shake her from my head. I started asking questions, quiet ones. Talked to a deputy I knew, asked if they'd figured out who she was. He just shook his head. "No one's come forward. We don't know where she came from. Hell, Dick, we don't even know how she got there." I asked about footprints, drag marks, boat tracks, anything. Nothing. It's like she just appeared. That was the word he used. Appeared. I didn't like that word. The thing is, there was no reason for her to be on that roof. No connection to the family who'd owned the place. No one had lived there for years. That house had been empty since before the floods started. But she was there. And something in my gut told me she hadn't got there by accident. The last time I saw her was about a week later. I'd gone back to the hospital with a box of toys and some clean clothes folks at the church had donated. Figured maybe it'd help her open up. Kids need comfort, even if they don't say it. She was sitting up this time. Looked better, color back in her cheeks. When she saw me, she smiled. First time I saw her do that. "Hey there," I said, setting the box down. "Got you something?" "Well, a bunch of people did." She nodded. Just once. I sat beside her, told her a story about when I was a kid and fell into the river trying to impress a girl. It got a little smile out of her. Not much, but enough to warm the room a bit. Then out of nowhere, she reached for my hand. Her voice was small, raspy, like someone who hadn't used it in days, which I guess she hadn't. And she said, "But I'll save that for later." I didn't react right away, didn't know how to. What she said, it hit me harder than I expected. But I'll get to that. Let's just say, it changed the way I looked at the whole thing. After all that, you'd think I'd be able to put it behind me. Just another rescue, right? One of many that summer. But it didn't work like that. The days kept moving. The water kept going down. Life slowly pushed forward, like it always does. Folks started rebuilding, cleaning out homes, replacing floorboards, scraping mold off drywall. Farmers checked their fields. Families picked through what little they had left. And I tried to do the same. But I couldn't. That little girl stayed in my head. Not just her face, her presence. That look. The way she was just sitting there, calm as the eye of a storm. And what she said to me, well, like I told you, I'll get to that. But let me tell you first what those days after felt like. I'd be driving down some back road, delivering bottled water to a shelter or helping someone dig out their tool shed, and suddenly I'd get this feeling, like I was being watched. Not in a spooky way, just aware. Like someone was following me, but not with footsteps. More like with memory. I'd wake up at night, swearing I heard water rushing under the floorboards, even though the flood was long gone. My boots by the door still smelled like that muddy field, no matter how many times I hosed them off. Everywhere I went, people thanked me. "Heard what you did, Dick. You're a hero." I hated that. I didn't feel like one, not even close. You see, when you're trained to handle pressure, war zones, emergencies, you don't celebrate when things go right. You just feel relief that it didn't go worse. And in this case, I didn't feel relief. I felt unsettled. Not because I did something wrong, but because I didn't understand what had happened. One afternoon, I drove out to that same field. The water had receded mostly. You could see the house now. The roof where I found her was sagging, full of rot. The field was just mud and ruin. Corn all gone. Just stumps sticking out like broken teeth. I stood there a long time. Boots sunk a couple inches into the wet ground, just looking, trying to make sense of it. How'd she get there? Where'd she come from? Why that spot? And most of all, why me? You start asking yourself questions like that, you can go in circles. I know better than to chase ghosts. But this didn't feel like a ghost story. It felt real, concrete, just unexplained. I went back to the hospital one more time, maybe a week later, just to see how she was doing. But she wasn't there. Nurse said she'd been placed with a temporary foster home. No details. Just gone. Like a leaf in the wind. No name. No relatives ever came forward. No files anyone could show me. I tried asking around, even called the sheriff's office, but hit a wall every time. It was like the story stopped after she left that hospital. No trail, no answers. And still, that thing she said to me kept ringing in my ears, over and over. I won't tell you just yet. Not yet. But I will say this. It made me think about things I'd never really put much stock in before. Things like timing, purpose, whether there's more to what we see, whether we're being moved sometimes, without even knowing it. And that shook me up, because I'd spent my whole life trusting what I could touch, what I could fix, what I could carry. That's what a soldier does. You assess, act, survive. But after that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe this whole thing was bigger than I was. That maybe I was just part of someone else's plan. It didn't scare me. Not exactly. It just changed me. I started paying attention to little things more. Where the wind came from, which birds showed up, how folks spoke when they thought no one was listening. I started listening more, not just with my ears, with my gut, because sometimes what's loudest ain't the thing shouting in your face. Sometimes it's what's sitting quiet, waiting, like she was. And even now, years later, I still think about her. Every time I drive near that field, every time it rains a little too long, every time I see a child sitting quiet with eyes too deep for their age, I wonder where she is, if she remembers me, if she ever thinks about that day, or about what she said, because I sure as hell do. It took me a long time to talk about this, not because I was scared folks wouldn't believe me. I've lived long enough not to worry about that. It's because I didn't know what to do with it, what she said, how she said it. I kept it to myself for years, just carried it, quiet. But I guess that's why I'm sitting here talking to this camera now. Not for answers, just so it don't stay locked up forever. Let me go back to that day in the hospital. The last time I saw her, like I told you, I brought her a box of toys, some clean clothes. She was sitting up in bed, looked better than before. And for the first time she smiled at me. Real gentle-like. Not forced. Just real. I sat down beside her, told her a dumb story from my army days, trying to keep things light. She laughed a little, then got quiet, and she reached out and touched my hand. Her fingers were small but warm now, stronger. She looked up at me, those same deep eyes, and she said, "He already saved me before you got there." I remember just freezing, trying to process what she'd said. Thought maybe I'd misheard. So I asked, real soft, "Who did, sweetheart?" She said, just as calm as before, "The man. He picked me up from the water, held me, and put me on the roof. He smiled, said you were coming. Then he walked back into the water." I didn't know what to say. I mean, there was no one else there. I checked. I looked. The area was wide open, and I came straight across it. That field was flat, nothing but water and broken stalks. I'd have seen someone. And there sure as hell wasn't anyone walking back into that water. I asked her what he looked like. She said, he was tall, wore something green, had a kind face. I remember feeling like my chest got tight, like someone reached in and squeezed my heart. She didn't say anything else after that, just turned her head and looked out the window. And I sat there, stuck. I don't know what happened out there. I don't. I'm not the kind of man who talks about miracles or spirits or angels or any of that. Never have been. I was raised to believe in hard work, in what you can see and hold. You build your life, you hold your ground, and you look out for your own. But what she said, how she said it didn't feel made up. Didn't feel like a kid's imagination. It felt matter of fact, like someone saying the sky's blue. I went over every possibility. Maybe someone helped her and left before I got there. Maybe I just didn't see him. Maybe the flood messed with my head more than I thought. But my gut says no. My gut says there was no one else out there. Except her, and me, and someone she saw that I didn't. I think about that a lot. I don't tell many people. When I have, they usually just nod polite, change the subject, or say something like, "Kids make things up when they're scared." Maybe. Maybe that's all it was. But if that's true, why'd she wait so long to say it? Why'd she look me dead in the eye like she knew exactly what she saw? And why did it feel like she wasn't scared at all? That's what gets me. She wasn't scared, not even at the worst part. Not on that rooftop. Not when I carried her. Not in that hospital bed. It was like she was protected. Like someone already had her and I was just there to finish the job. That thought, it stuck in my head. Still does. It changed the way I see things, changed the way I talk to people. I listen more now, especially when someone says something strange. I don't brush it off. I take a minute, I let it sit, because sometimes what don't make sense to us might still be true. I've had buddies from the service say things like, "Dick, maybe it was someone who didn't make it out. Maybe it was someone who came back to help one more time." I don't know about that, but I do know this. I don't think I was alone out there that day, and I don't think she was either. And if that don't make sense, well, maybe it ain't supposed to. Some things you just carry, quietly. I don't tell this story for drama, and I sure ain't telling it 'cause I want sympathy. I tell it because it's real. It happened. I was there. I lived it. And for years, I kept it to myself. Locked it up like a file in the back of my mind. Figured nobody'd care, or worse, they'd think I was losing it. But time has a way of wearing down your walls. Makes you realize there's stuff you don't want to take to the grave. Stuff that maybe, just maybe, needs to be said out loud, even if it don't get answers. Maybe especially then. So if you're still watching this, I guess I want to say this. We don't get to pick the moments that change us. Sometimes they sneak up on you in the middle of a war zone. Sometimes they come floating on a flooded rooftop, wearing a pink coat and holding your poncho like it's the last thing tethering her to this world. And sometimes they leave you with a sentence you'll never unhear. I've thought about that girl every year since. I don't know where she is now. Don't know if she remembers me. But I sure remember her. And I remember that moment plain as day. Her hand on mine. Her eyes on mine. He already saved me before you got there. You ever hear something like that from a child? It shifts you, even if you don't understand it, even if you try to move past it. Look, I don't know what you believe in. Ain't my place to tell you how the world works. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know that I wasn't the first one to reach her. I was just the one meant to carry her the last mile. So maybe that's the point. Maybe life ain't about being the hero in the whole story. Maybe it's just about showing up when it's your turn, being the hands that finish what someone else started, being the quiet part in somebody else's miracle. If you've had a moment like that, where things didn't add up, but something inside told you it was real, don't shove it down. Don't laugh it off. Maybe there's more of us out there than we think. And if you've been carrying a memory like mine, something you've never talked about because you didn't know how, leave it down in the comments, or write it in a letter, or just say it out loud to the wind. Let it breathe. We spend so much time pretending we've got it all figured out, like we're too tough, too old, too logical to believe in anything we can't explain. But I'm telling you right now, there's more going on out there than any of us understand, and that's okay. You don't have to explain it. You just have to show up when it's your turn. That's what I did. That's what I was trained to do. And I think, deep down, I was supposed to be there that day. Even if I wasn't the first. Even if I wasn't the only one. So yeah, that's my story. Thanks for hearing me out. And if you got a story of your own, I'd be honored to hear it too. Maybe we ain't as alone in this world as we think.